Go ahead and get started. So, welcome, everybody. My name is Eric, and I'm super excited to be here with my good buddy Elizabeth Nearing. We will be leading. There's some other folks here who are going to want to talk to you, but we're going to start off with a very quick breathing exercise. I thought it'd be good to start with just like, welcoming y'all into the space and kind of like acknowledging our collective humanity. So important. And all of us have to breathe. So why not do it together for a moment? Take a couple of breaths together so we can kind of arrive and settle and just say, hey. So we are going to do a brief exercise called box breathing. Box breathing, for those of you that don't know, is it's a slightly different way of breathing, but you'll get it in no time. So here's how it works. We're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. Then we're going to hold that breath in for 4 seconds. And then we're going to breathe out for 4 seconds. And then we're going to hold again for another 4 seconds. Don't worry about doing the counting. I'll do that for you. So you just have to listen to me. And if that doesn't feel comfortable for you, that is okay. You can just engage in some deep breaths. Okay, so don't stress yourself if you're feeling uncomfortable. This is meant to be the opposite of that. This is meant to settle any anxiety and also just arrive in the space and be together. All right. So if that feels good to you, we'll go ahead and get started. So I will ask that you find a comfortable position. If you are sitting, if you can put your feet flat on the ground and sit with your back kind of straight up. What you're looking for is comfort while also being alert. Okay. And if you want to close your eyes, you can absolutely do that. If you want to just lower your lids, you can do that. If you're comfortable just as you are, that is fine as well. And we'll go ahead and begin with a breath in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Again in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Last one. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Now return to your normal breath and welcome everybody. So glad you all are here. So what we'd like to do is actually begin with 3 words, and we're going to ask you to use the chat. We would like to hear 3 words about how you are, how you're arriving, what's on your heart, what's happening with you. So just 3 words down in the chat. Type them in and go ahead and hit enter. And we're going to give you about a minute for that. So once again, the prompt is in the chat. We're looking for 3 words describing how you are. How are things going with you today? How are you arriving? Go ahead and type those in the chat and hit enter as you get it in there. There we go. And they're coming in now. You can see all the wonderful and beautiful ways that people are showing up. Got some excitement and some hopefulness. We've got very, very busy, tight schedules. Yeah, we've got some time pressure and some excitement. Yep, no worries. If you have things you need to get done, please go ahead and take care of yourself.
I found a flight on Hartford from American Airlines for 478.
Oh, okay. When is it leaving?
So after you've typed in where you are, if you want to open up the chat and just take a look and see where your colleagues are, see how folks are doing. Just take a minute to kind of read through where people are and how they're showing up. We've got lots of great stuff. A lot of curiosity came up a few times. Busy came up a few times. Transitional. There's busy again. Lots of busy group. Amazing.
Yes. I'm like honoring the busyness, and there's some heaviness in the group, people you're thinking about, people you're honoring, and like so much that you are leaving to spend time or not fully leaving. You know, shout out to caretakers and caregivers in the world who are parenting and Zooming at the same time, or grandparenting or auntieing, or, you know, there's a lot happening. And so we're really grateful that you're spending this hour with us to spend some time hearing a little bit about Catalyst Amplified, what that is, what you want it to be, also being a really important part of it, and hearing where you're coming from and really making this with you. So in our time together today, the real like creators behind this, like a lot of the creators behind this program, are going to talk a little bit about how it got here, what it is, what it has been, and what we're hoping it to be. But before we get into that sort of like presentation mode, we want to center what's on your mind first and what you're coming in with. So if you're coming in with like a question or two that's like, that's rising to the surface, I'd actually invite everyone, if you don't have a question that you like have articulated already, to like come up with one about Catalyst Amplified, and we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to put it in through the chat. Now, if there's anybody who does not have access to the chat, you can like raise a hand or wave or unmute. Just want to make sure your voice is in the room as well. So what I'm asking is for everyone to put at least one question in the chat that you have for what Catalyst Amplified is, what you want to get out of this hour, a question that like by 4 o'clock you would really love to be answered. We might not get to 100% of them, but we want to at least get them in the room and to get as much of that curiosity and questioning in the room. I almost said any questions, but if you all could just take a minute to think about what you're curious about and what you want out of this hour, or out of this program, and put a question in the chat. So we're going to have some intentional silence while that's happening. Sarada raised a hand.
No, I'm sorry. That was a mistake.
Oh, all good. Glad to hear your voice anyway. Give it about another 30 seconds. If you haven't put a question in, I want to encourage everyone, no matter how simple the question is or how complicated, to put a question in there. There is so much wisdom in this group, pretty clearly. Longing on and seeing y'all's faces start to arrive. That was like, they could feel energy, but then like seeing the questions, just like the wisdom in this room is palpable, and a lot of different kinds of it. Please keep putting questions. Actually, I'm going to say the opposite. If you could stop typing in questions for a moment while people read, just so that people can scroll through. I'll read a few of them out loud. So how will this group expand upon the work done by those of us in Catalyst 1.0, or is this completely different? What was the impetus to get this started? Whose idea was it and why? What tools will you use to collect feedback prior to a session? How do we re-energize the arts community after the pandemic? What is Catalyst and how do we interact with this group? How can there be a fairer distribution of program grants, particularly for the Black community? How is this being made equitable for Black, Indigenous people of color? How does this include voices and feedback from underrepresented communities and youth? What outcomes does the foundation hope to see? How will this program help us do the personal work for the public work to happen? What are ways we might use this time together to inclusively reimagine how our sector connects resources to our renewed goals and missions? What is the investment from participants? How can we further encourage a collective effort to raise the arts profile and collaborate together in new ways outside of the box? What is the full imagination and goals of Catalyst Amplified? And what will success look like? So we have all these questions. I'm sure we'll answer some of them and not all of them. So keep them coming. At this point, how we use lessons learned from the pandemic. Absolutely, great questions. I'm actually gonna hold here and kick it over to Jackie and Kate and Mare to talk a little bit about how this program came to be, a little bit of the story. And of course, if you want to answer some of the questions that have been raised or like what's coming up for you, the floor is yours.
I think we agreed that I was going to start off here and then pass it along. So thank you, Eric and Elizabeth. We're so honored and grateful that you have agreed to join this conversation. I do want to acknowledge, I'm Jackie Coleman, by the way. I'm with the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. And I have two colleagues here from the foundation that I could see. If there's another one that I missed, please speak up. But Mayor Schulman, if you want to like wave, Mayor has been involved with Catalyst since the very beginning. And then I'm very excited to introduce one of our brandy new employees who started last Monday, Joelle Hicks Rivera, who is actually joining the Arts Outcome Team, which is our internal think tank to be thinking and talking about our impact in the arts sector. And he was available to join today to learn a little bit about Catalyst like all of you. So happy to have him, and feel free at any time to reach out to any of us with questions ongoing. So I'm going to, as quickly as I can, just because we can spend more time hearing from you, but I do want to give some context, or as Elizabeth likes to say, tell the story. So we share Shakespearean love together, Elizabeth and I. I will not speak in iambic pentameter, but I will share that that there is that connection. Anyway, so the Catalyst came about actually post-COVID. Well, sorry, not post-COVID, because of COVID. We were at the Hartford Foundation talking about how can we do something with the small amount of resource that we have that might help the broader arts community. And after attending a couple of conversations, group conversations, some of you might have been on some of those group conversations, two things emerged for us. One was to collectively purchase PPE in bulk. And we partnered with the Arts Council on that and made that available. And then the other was around this sort of network capacity building support during this time of craziness and needing some transition. So Mayor Schulman, who was from the nonprofit support program at the foundation, she and I met with a few folks and had some conversations about what this could look like. And we did it relatively quickly because we were trying to be responsive and putting something out there, providing some opportunities for some conversation. This time it's like a slower, because we're trying to get more input into the creation of the program, which is why we're all here today. I'm very happy that you're here. So originally the program involved 16 different arts organizations that just said they were interested and wanted to participate and make the commitment. And it was a 6-week, once a week networking session type of group meeting, group think, coupled with what we call deep dives and some executive coaching. So each organization also got some individualized conversation and thinking. So when you hear Catalyst 1.0, that's what happened there. We were able to run a survey at the end of it for feedback. And then also Mayor and I did have a one-on-one meeting with each organization post the whole Catalyst program to understand what worked, what didn't work, where are you now, what do you need next, and just sort of get a sense of what's needed next in the field to move forward. And one of the pieces that came out was the idea of a network, the idea of truly building community. That this last one wasn't really like, it was 6 sessions, it was kind of fast, it was getting some conversations going, but really, what if we could have a deeper networked, more relational community of arts organizations? And so several of those organizations came together in a small meeting. We talked through a couple more different ideas. With the Catalyst, the original Catalyst 16 organizations, we were able to circulate sort of a draft plan that Elizabeth and Eric had put together that I think you probably have seen before coming to this meeting if you had a chance to look at it. Again, it's a draft. These were some of the hopes of what the organizations we were talking to, what people wanted to get out of it, what they saw was possible. And it was sort of Eric's and Elizabeth's best thinking as to how to get there. And I just want to share a couple more things before I kick it over, because I did note that important question in the chat about the Hartford Foundation's goals. So I am going to actually read to you to make sure that I say it accurately, are what we use internally as our North Star. So we have like our, sort of high level North Star important goals in each of our outcome areas, employment, housing, all of that. So I'm going to share with you our arts sector goal. And more specific than that, we don't necessarily have right now for this group because we're co-creating that, but this is the higher level outcome of what the Hartford Foundation hopes comes out of this experience. So, and that is to promote a stronger and more resilient arts and culture sector that's defined as more inclusive and offering increased equitable opportunities for people of color. So I hope some of the other questions that were coming up about BIPOC artists and equitable and inclusive grant opportunities, hopefully that outcome makes you peek up and be curious and help us maybe even think about and co-create how we can do that better in the community. So, so that's what our agenda is. And I do want to say, we are very excited in this sort of second phase that we called Catalyst Amplify, because we want to amplify that network and really move into that sort of collaborative space if possible. And to model that, we asked the Arts Council if they would partner on this and really kind of take over being the communications liaison and really moving this network forward. And they said yes. So in a moment, I'm going to kick it over to the Greater Hartford Arts Council, to Kate and to Amanda, to share more of the logistical pieces. And so that said, this is not, I want to tell you what it's not. This is not an NSP type of program where there's often maybe a small grant attached, or at some point at the end of it. This is not that. This is there's no gold at the end of the end of the rainbow. That we are hoping that what the rainbow is the experience, which is why we want to do everything we can to have you all participate in where your crossed outcomes and goals are. We will say that we are working with the Arts Council to arrange for a stipend for each organization that does participate, but really consider it like a stipend for honoring your time, for actually coming each month to the sessions. And it's not, really like a grant type of an opportunity there. So, but I just wanted to kind of tell you that's what it is and what we were thinking about. And then I'm gonna kick it over to Kate. And like I said, you can always email me. I'll drop my email in the chat and we can have further conversation about any of this. Kate, take it away.
Thanks, Jackie. So good to see everyone. My colleague Amanda Roy is here with me on the call today. And yeah, we are so happy to be joining the Catalyst Amplified team for this second phase of the program. And like Jackie said, I'll share some of the logistics so that you have some of those pieces of the puzzle as you're thinking about your commitment or your involvement in the program. I think as we've started to see, and we'll see a little bit further from Eric and Elizabeth, is that this is really meant to be a collaborative program and to be iterative and built with participants. So I hope that you feel that through today's session and going forward. We do expect this program, Catalyst Amplified, to be a 1-year cohort commitment. And so it would be 1 2-hour monthly meeting with Eric and Elizabeth as our wonderful facilitators for each session. We will have a set schedule of meetings. We're expecting it to start in late July, early August, and then we'll do a set schedule, maybe, second Tuesday of every month or whatever it is, so that everybody can sort of get it on their calendars and have that expectation set right from the beginning. We do expect it to be a virtual program until, perhaps a time when it's safer to meet in person. Hopefully that's pretty soon. In terms of who should participate or could participate, up to 2 representatives from Greater Hartford Arts organizations, which could include staff, board members, volunteers, depending on how the organization is structured. Participants should be able to commit to all of the sessions. We do ask that, or at least the majority of them. And also, based on feedback from past Catalyst participants, the goal of the Amplified program is to perhaps engage members of your staff or your team who would not necessarily have access to other networks. So, maybe program staff, maybe education staff, others within the organization who, you could really see benefiting from a cohort program and who, could bring that back to your organization and help everybody move forward. In terms of next steps, where we go after today, the Arts Council will be sending out an email later in the week with the logistics I just mentioned, the commitment, the time commitment and all of that. And we'll also be sending out a brief form for you to complete to say, whether to confirm your interest, right? Whether or not you would be liking to participate, who from your organization you would be thinking about having participate in the program. And then also answering the question that Jackie posed earlier. We'll again put that in writing so that you all can think a little bit about that and to be able to submit that with your interest form. From there, again, we expect the program to start in, late July, early August. So we would be in touch with you between now and then in terms of cohort structure, how we would be kicking things off, things like that. And like Jackie said, if anybody has any questions, I'll put my email in the chat too. Feel free to reach out to myself or Amanda. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. But we look forward to working with everybody throughout this program.
And Jackie or Kate, could you put that question in the chat just so people have access to it now as well?
Right.
I'm typing it in as you speak.
Awesome.
Just read my mind.
Awesome. So back to Elizabeth and Eric.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate and Jackie. So that was a lot of information, a lot of beautiful information. The first question we have is just like, what is up for you after listening for all of that? Like, what is coming up for folks? If you want to like stick with the chat, or if there's something that is like rising to the surface right now, just wanting to capture what comes up for you from what you've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I am Jeff Devereaux from First Night Hartford, representing First Night Hartford today. And I was part of the first cohort, so I'm definitely dying to know who came back from the first, and who's new in the room. I guess maybe just excited to meet everybody more than anything else.
Yeah. If folks who have done the cohort, who were part of cohort 1.0, could y'all like do a little dance or wave your hand or do a little heart sign or look at all these beautiful, you can scroll through. I don't know about y'all, but you don't all fit in one screen. Amazing. Thank you, everyone who was a part of the first cohort. Great wiggles. And then now could we have everyone who is new do a little dance or like wave or like move? Yes. Great. Welcome. Awesome. So that was a quick pull for you, Jeff. But I think in terms of Sarada, is this a hand raise to the question I just said? Okay. Okay, great. Beautiful.
So it may be helpful to hear a little bit about what our thinking is about how we might run 2.0, and then we'd love to hear back thoughts, ideas, because it's really important for Elizabeth and I, one, that this actually be a value for you, and so we want to leave plenty of space for what is emergent, what happens in the moment, so that we can feel the flexibility and the freedom to follow those things as they come up. So, so I'm going to just offer a very brief kind of high-level description, and if there's any questions about anything that I'm describing, don't hesitate to jump in. So. So our sort of thinking about this is to use a series of exercises and digital tools, some somatic embodiment practices to support the work as it evolves. In this way, we can be both responsive, but also provide, some structure for folks to be able to move down the path that feels good. We have kind of broken the sessions into some very broad themes. So the themes are building belonging, deepening values, asset and culture mapping, collaborative learning, and then generative action. So the idea is that we would move through these sessions and continue to adjust the process as we move through it. So as things emerge, as we get more information from you all about what is useful, what is not useful, What are you learning and discovering? What do you want to follow? We want to have the flexibility and freedom to be able to make adjustments to what we're going to be up to support that work. So that is a very very general thing. Elizabeth, did you want to add anything to that?
That's beautiful, Eric. Yeah, I'll add a few words. I think one of the kind of theories of change, or not kind of, but pretty exactly a theory of change that Eric and I work with, is that working from relationship and working in foundation of relationships and interconnectedness provides like a strong platform for generative action, right? That if you put relationship first, the action will come more easily. And so taking the time in a year-long cohort model to really spend time on like coaching and leadership development, but also on like what exists within the room and like how to build belonging within and beyond this work, right? So that's one of the advantages, I think, of like a cohort model work, is like really what is built with the people in the room. And really you can like feel that in this room from people who are part of the first Catalyst, of like that, like, oh, here's everybody together again. Like here's this like group dynamic and group energy, which I think is an exciting part of building this together, and how to embody values and do some values alignment work. Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to you all and see what are reactions to what you've heard, any questions that you have, or what may be coming up for you in the moment.
Yeah, Jennifer.
I was part of Catalyst 101. My name is Jennifer, and I'm from Nightfall. I guess coming up for me in the moment, I was just remembering what was so helpful with, I thought, in the Catalyst conversations, was exploring assumptions that are not necessarily shared, and really spending time on definitions of community and where people are with words like collaboration or radical or inclusive. And I think really kind of breaking down the idea that there's one art sector that has a unified mission was really wonderful last year, and hoping that we can do some more of that together. And what was not helpful, and I think as a group we kind of nipped it in the bud whenever it happened, for me, what's not helpful is kind of going over old scripts about Hartford's flaws. So not that we want to be naive about Hartford, but we already kind of know what are those go-to things that people say about Hartford, about what's wrong with Hartford, or how we could never get our act together. And I just think that, that was that's kind of an attitude, a refreshed lens about kind of honestly moving forward together, instead of rehashing that boring old tape about Hartford not being good enough, or, again, I don't mean that in a naive way. I mean that about let's say what's true instead of what we've always said.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate both sides of that, what was helpful and what wasn't. So thank you very much.
I think on that point too is questions and things that are coming up, but also, what do you want us to know? What are things that you want us to know in coming into this program? Yeah. Did I hear somebody unmute and start to go? You don't need to raise your hand. You can just unmute and go. No questions. Everyone understands is all like 100%. You know, we all know, no, we got it all. We got it all. Sometimes the big group questioning is not the like path of most ease for everybody. Is there a hand up? Yeah. Is it Tanea or did I say
It's
that?
Tanea.
Tanea. Okay, great.
I think for me, we're not explicitly an art organization. It's definitely in our mission, but a lot of our programming is run by artists. So I want to know in like what ways we can be supported in that way, and like how to collaborate with others in the app.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the buckets that y'all heard me name in terms of theme was belonging and building belonging, and embedded in that comment is, I'm sorry, Tanea. Great, thank you. One of the things I hear embedded in that comment, Tanea, is sort of figuring out where the intersections of the work is. So, you know, so your folks are doing a thing, and there's some other work happening that somebody on this call is either engaged in or knows about that would support the work that y'all are doing beautifully. And so our role is to try to create the environment where those things can bubble up to the surface. And that's sort of what we mean when we talk about both belonging as well as collaborative learning. So that's kind of what we're after with that. And that piece, the woman had brought up definitions, getting clear on what we mean when we use certain terms. That's an important part of that relationship and belonging building as well, that folks leave with a sense of cohesion and a sense that we are on the same page moving forward as we continue to engage the work. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it. Does that answer your question, Tanea?
Yeah, a little bit. It sounds optimistic.
I am an optimist. I'll be the first one to say it. But I also truly believe that we can do it. And yeah, and we've done it before. So I think we can do it again. Yeah, Carol, did you have your hand up?
I did. There has been a lot of attempts at networking grouping over the last 14 or 15 months. Some short and specific, some long and really labor intensive. And for the arts sector to be really effective, we have to address and come together in important ways with the schools. I know what Hartford Performs is doing, but I also know that Hartford Public Schools is doing stuff independently right now, trying to do outreach. I know the universities in the area are trying. I'm wondering if they're what the academic representation is here.
Beautiful, Carol. Was somebody else unmuting there? All right, so we're gonna mix it up for 5 minutes. And what we're gonna do is y'all are gonna be in breakout rooms for 5 minutes with somebody, with like 2 or 3 people in each room. And we're gonna ask y'all to just take those minutes, make sure each person has at least 2 minutes to talk about what's coming up around this program, what you're hopeful for. And when we come back to like close out on this info session, we're going to talk a little bit about like what came up in those rooms, what questions are still lingering, and really like what you want to get out of this program. And we'll ask folks to share that when they get back. Any questions before we hop into rooms? All right, I'm just making sure that everybody's in one. Is Carol, your hand is still up? Is that just another question? Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't gonna cut you off by putting you into a room. I don't want to deny anyone's questions. All right. You should be getting invited into a room momentarily. Carol, how was that? How'd it go? See some thumbs up?
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I know 5 minutes. I hope you covered a lot.
5 minutes is quick. Well, y'all did it, right? Y'all solved it. You solved all the problems in the art community. We're done. Yeah? No? Still work to do?
You took one of our peeps away.
So is anything bubbling up based on the conversations you've had, what you've heard so far this morning? Anything you'd like to share either in the chat or out loud? We would love to hear it before we move to a close. Reverend Bess, would you go ahead?
Hello. So in our small breakout, my dear friends from Spectrum and Motion were like, so what's really going on up in here? And what's not being reflected is that in Catalyst 1, it started out as a great idea. And then we had one session in particular where people of color said what we really thought. And then there was shock in the room. And then the next week, the facilitators acted like we didn't have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it never was mentioned again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of lingering in the ethos.
Yeah.
Because as people of color, when we tell our truth and it's painful, and then it gets shut down, it's like, here we go again. So I'm sure some people are feeling like, do I need to bleed out in this session and share my blood and then have it ignored again? So I think that's kind of the...
Yeah. I can absolutely understand that feeling. I mean, what I can say is it's certainly not something we would leave unaddressed, for sure. But more importantly than I think when the work is done to create an environment where people feel comfortable and safe to express themselves from whatever perspective, speaking from their own lived and personal experience, then it's a lot easier when we can sort of just acknowledge each other's humanity and be with each other in that. And that's really, at least, I think it's fair to speak for Elizabeth when I say that is really at the heart of the work that we do. Similar to what Elizabeth said earlier, we believe that when we start with relationship, other things flow naturally from that, and it enables us to have the difficult conversations that we need to have in order to get to the places where we want to go as a community. So that is a critical part of our process, and you'll notice that we're going to spend a lot of time just building relationship. Mm-hmm. And that is an important, a critical part. Like, we wouldn't even try to do the other stuff until we felt like we had a place where a healthy conversation could happen. It's not always going to be comfortable, and it shouldn't be, but it will be a safe environment, and it will be an environment where people, I hope, feel at liberty to speak their mind. That's what we're trying to create. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh yeah, all the way, yes. And thank you for naming that and like getting some of that history into this room, so that so we know, and so that we can move through, and that like there are a lot of tools that we can use when things happen, and the cohort will be like shaping the history, and like we won't, we're not going to forget about the last session at the next session, because in our work, one of the ways that we one of the ways I really try and do it is that like everybody brings their experience and their humanity every time we get together, and denying the history of our last meeting would be denying the humanity of the people in the room. And that's not how we like to do stuff. And like that, those oopses and ouches happen. We cannot promise a cohort with no mistakes or no hurt or no, but we can promise like building containers that where we have the tools to work through those things together. Deborah, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Farmington Valley Corral. I need to change my name. The three new people in my group all had the same question. We are not clear really how this is going to work. And Jackie had referred to a report out from Catalyst 1.0 with it sort of assumed that we'd seen that, and none of us have seen that. So if we could get that sent out, it would be enormously helpful to sort of set some baseline for us. And I'm also hoping that we will get a list of the organizations who are participating with their mission statements to sort of give us a sense for who we are learning to work with.
And I just want to just say that, Deborah, thank you for that. Whatever I said, I didn't actually have something in writing that was a report of Catalyst 1.0. However, I actually think that is a great idea, and that I think it was a verbal report that Mare and I had done, a verbal check-in with the different organizations. But I think we could put together a brief basically about Catalyst 1.0 so that people can feel up to speed. So thank you for bringing that up.
So conscious of the time and the fact that we're not going to get to every single question today, but that like, since we have a lot in the chat, like to be able to come back to and really sitting with like with your own experience with this program, or like coming in as a beginner, coming in as somebody who's done Catalyst 1.0, been doing cohort models in Hartford for years, wherever you're coming from. I think to close this out, we wanted to do just like another type in the chat, which is, what do you hope for from this? Like, what is it that you are looking for and you are hoping for from this program? Is that Eric and I, anything I'm missing there?
No, I don't think you're missing anything. I would just add that if you're not feeling clear on that in this moment, put something you're grateful for in the chat. And this process, I see it as probably an ongoing thing as we kind of work our way through these questions. And so I guess I'm saying to say, if questions continue, if you think of other things after we end today, send those back on to Jackie. Can they send them to you? Or should they send them to someone else, Jackie? Okay.
Or Kate McComber from the Arts Council. Either we both put our emails in the chat.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Got some great things coming up in the chat. Grateful for the opportunity to grow and learn, shared hope and vision, to learn and build support, relationships, spaces to thrive and appreciation. Hungry and available to learn and experience. Grateful to God for making connections. Grateful for Hartford, for life and good health. Building relationships, stronger community. Grateful to have this gathering and feeling hopeful for now and the future. It's great.
And if y'all are able to turn your camera on for a second, if you're in a place to just in our last minute as we're getting these final things in the chat, just to invite you all to look at each other just to scroll through and look at each other's faces and, you know, send some good energy to the other folks in the room. And thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for being here, everybody, and really, really looking forward to getting to know you all better and getting started with this work. Well, us getting started and continuing the work.
Resilient little